Into our storm-related news, and not the cleanest or most fun start to the season, but the first few games, the first 3 games they've played of the season, all over the past week, good learning opportunities for this Storm team in a few different ways. So we'll get into it here. Opening night, May 14th, versus the Minnesota Lynx at Climate Pledge Arena was unfortunately a 70-83 loss. Our player of the game forward, Nneka Ogwumike, 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 steals on the night. This is a tough one. I mean, it was nice to see the Storm debut their new Rebel jerseys this year, as you can see in the photo here, photo of the game by Liv Lyons. It was a tough one. I mean, the first half wasn't horrible. I mean, there were some notable things for the Storm where they just needed to be better shot selection-wise, and there was definitely some occasions where it was apparent that the systems were still getting put into place and that players were still getting used to each other, which, when you have just like a 2-week camp, it's not so easy to just fully gain that chemistry. And then the second half, Minnesota took full advantage. They were more physical. Alana Smith was doing well for the Lynx. Nafisha Collier is just a problem every time. So that was tough there, and the Storm lose game 1. And I don't think the Lynx get as much credit as they should. They've got a talented roster. They got Alyssa Peely in the draft to bring them a great, talented, physical player. The Lynx have got a strong squad. Courtney Williams at the guard position. There's a lot going on with Minnesota, and they can be a problem. So I don't think they get as much credit. And they handled the Storm in the first 2 games of the season. May 17th at the Lynx on Friday. So a few days after Game 1, the Storm get a rematch chance against the Lynx. They lose in double overtime by a score of 93-102. Once again, our player of the game forward, Nneka Ogwumike. Nneka, 24 points, 11 rebounds, 1 assist, 5 steals, and 1 block on the night. She did leave late into this game with an ankle injury, unfortunately. So that's something to watch and keep track of. But this one was tough. First half, kind of similar situation. The Storm they had strong moments in this one. The Lynx do get a nice little run to end the first half. Third period, not so great, but not as bad. And then the fourth quarter, they win that one to force overtime. In the first overtime, Seattle's kind of going ahead and getting the first step, but the Lynx are right there with them to go into second overtime. The Lynx just pull away in this one. Plus, the Storm were without Nneka, and Jewel Lloyd had fouled out as well. I believe it's the first time she's ever fouled out. It might be first or second. And Minnesota, again, they're a very talented team, and I don't think they get as much credit win in this one. But some learning moments throughout this one. The Storm definitely looked better in Game 2. And they're doing all of this without Nika Mule, which we'll talk about in a minute. May 19th, to close out the week, in the second game of a 3-game road trip that ends tonight, actually. May 19th at the Washington Mystics, an 84-75 win. Our player of the game, guard Jewel Lloyd, 24 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal. Seattle gets a good effort in this one. Skylar Diggins-Smith, who had some nice performances in the last few games as well. And Jewel Lloyd put together a nice performance for the team. Ezzie Magbegor with a double-double in this one. All 3 members of the core 4 contributing throughout the first 3 games. Jewel Lloyd struggling through the first 2 games. Shooting-wise, she was just 7 for 40 in her first 2 games, but finding more of her footing in Game 3 here. And the Storm are able to get through and get their first win of the season against the Mystics in Game 3.
Hey, Storm fans, it's Christian Brassel, your Storm beat writer for Circle Seattle Sports. There's been a lot of critique, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of criticism of the Seattle Storm throughout the 2024 WNBA season. Some rightfully so, some not so. As far as the I do believe that this team fielded 2 great players, Nneka Ogwumike and Skylar Diggins-Smith, to compete for a WNBA championship. Does that mean that was going to happen overnight? No. Same way it happened for the Liberty last year. It took time, nearly almost half a season, for the Liberty to really hit on all cylinders, bond as a team, get that chemistry going that they really needed. And I believe that Seattle would be in the same fate. For the simple fact that Skylar Diggins-Smith has not played basketball in 20-plus months, this is a factor that I feel like has not been talked about enough, yet still finds a way to criticize a player without providing proper context. We as media members have to do better. We have to understand And I'm just not understanding why we don't give certain players grace, but we extend that certain grace to other players. Coach spoke about it in the post game today, and she was visibly upset about it because Skylar Diggins-Smith continually gets critiqued. She continually gets ridiculed for things that are kind of out of her control as she, adjusted becoming a professional athlete again after missing plus months. And it's an 0-4 start. It's 4 games out of a 40-game season. There is perfectly enough time to right the ship. We just have to give Skylar Diggins-Smith some grace, give the Storm some patience, and let them gel into who they're going to be. It's going to take time. Won't happen overnight, but it will happen.
Our player of the week, as we can finally get back to players of the week, since we don't have just one game over the past 7 days, is forward Nneka Ogwumike. You could probably assume that with me saying her name for the first 2 games. 22 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, and a 0.5 assists per game for Nneka in her first 2 games as a Storm player, or as she would say during training camp, as a Stormy. Tough to not have her in game 3, but nice to see the Storm still be able to win. It's just really been incredible to watch her in a Storm uniform, for one. I'll salute Madam President. But just seeing the steadying presence that she is, and when the Storm can really start to play off of her, whether it's, playing off of her in terms of handoffs, dribble handoffs, getting downhill off of her, stuff like that, it'll be really fun for the Storm to be able to take advantage and see what they can unlock, especially seeing her and Ezi Magbagor play together in game 1. It was really impressive to see them guard the rim, and I'm just, when you can fully get this defense set and assignment set and the team used to playing with each other, it's going to be dangerous to watch. So not a lot of injury news outside of what I just mentioned. We'll look at the availability reports for the last 3 games that we just talked about. For opening night and then game 2 at Minnesota, Nika Mule out as she continues to wait with pending visa approval. She was questionable for that second game against Minnesota, as the team was hopeful that things would go through. They did not, and just before game time, she was ruled as out. Game 3 at Washington, Nneka Ogwumike was questionable. She was later ruled to out with that ankle. It seems like they're being precautionary with it. After game 2 against Minnesota, Nneka was asked about it. She said she'll be fine, and she wasn't really worried about it. But obviously the Storm, with the quick turnaround, just a day between games. I was trying to get ahead of myself and talk about games. And then their third game of the road trip, second game after that Mystics game, they're just being the next day. I'm sure they're being cautious there. Nneka is a game time decision. We haven't see pre-game availability isn't by the time we're recording this, so we probably won't be able to know. Nneka is a game time decision, so she could play in the May 20th game against the Liberty, but as of the time of recording, we are not sure. We do have some team-related notes here, quite a bit for the Storm, as we continue to try and be one of the best outlets in covering everything going on with the Storm. And it happened after we were recording last week's episode, so we didn't get to talk about it. But on the 13th, on Monday, the team announced their 2024 roster. Jewel Lloyd, Ezi Magbagor, Nneka Ogwumike, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Sammy Whitcomb, Kiana Williams, Nika Mule, their second-round pick, Jordan Horston, Mercedes Russell, Dulcie Fankum-Mangiadu, and Victoria Vivians round out the 11-player roster for the Storm. We'll go over a few highlights here. Obviously, Jewel Lloyd broke the WNBA's single-season scoring record with 939 points last season and earned all WNBA team honors for the 3rd time in a career. Ezi, who turned 24 at the end of the last season, was named to the all-defensive team for the 2nd time in her career after finishing 2nd in blocks and 10th in rebounding. Obviously, you've got the big offseason additions in Nneka and Skylar. Nneka, the 2016 League MVP and a 6-time All-WNBA pick, coming off another strong season, finishing 6th in scoring and rebounds. Skylar Diggins-Smith, a 6-time All-WNBA selection as well, one of the top point guards in the game, posting career averages of 16.7 points, 4.9 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 2.9 rebounds, and 1.3 steals per game. Did not play in the 2023 season after giving birth to her 2nd child. Sammy Whitcomb, obviously the University of Washington alumni, coming back to provide depth at that guard position. Put into a kind of a tough position last year as she had to play a lot of point guard, with Seattle really not having an established point guard of sorts. The 3-point specialist averaged 9.7 points per game, while hitting 38.5% from beyond the arc last year. Kiana Williams and Nika Mule help round out the backcourt for Seattle. Williams was originally drafted by the Storm back in 2021, looked sharp in the final preseason game of the year for Seattle, scoring 9 points. Nika Mule, one of the top guards in college last season and the Storm's first pick in this past year's draft, provides, someone who's going to be verbal on the court, great defensive effort. It really has shown leadership at that point guard position despite being a rookie, and can provide some offensive punch for you as well. Really going to be excited to see Nika when she's able to play in games. As when I saw her in camp in that lone preseason game, there's definitely the tools there to be a really strong contributor for this Storm team. So really excited at that. In the front court, obviously Jordan Horson in her second year. Mercedes Russell coming back as an established veteran, I believe the longest tenured Storm player, I think, with the team currently, and Dulcie Fenka-Mangiadu. Victoria Vivians joins the team as that veteran addition as she signed in the offseason. Horson became just the fourth Storm player to earn WNBA All-Rookie honors, averaging 6.9 points, 5.1 rebounds, 1.6 assists, and 1.2 steals during her inaugural season. Dulcie averaged 4.1 points and 4.5 rebounds per game for the Storm, a really strong rebounder for this team. And if she can really work on her offensive game, going to be a strong contributor inside for the Seattle. Russell returned to the court 2023 after not being available in 2022 as she dealt with a recurring injury. She was a WNBL Finals MVP with the Southside Flyers in Australia during the league's off-season. She led the WNBL in field goal percentage and finished 5th in rebounding. Victoria Vivians comes to Seattle from Indiana in the Fever, where she spent 5 seasons, averaging 7.5 points, 3.2 rebounds, and 1.5 assists during that time. With her, she was a player that Noelle Quinn, and stood out to me that when she was in the starting lineup for those 2 preseason games, Noelle Quinn said she's a player that we can really trust to not have to demand the ball. She's really able to do her own thing with the other core 4 on the court for Seattle, and Lloyd, Skylar, NECA, and Ezzy. So that was something that stood out to me, and we've kind of seen that through these first few games here as well as camp. So there's that. We look at the final roster move that was made on the 13th. The team waived for Joyner Holmes. Holmes averaged 3.3 points and 2.5 rebounds in 34 games last season with Seattle, which was her 4th season in the league overall. She played in both preseason games. She had a 13-point effort in the Storm preseason opener in Edmonton, provided some strong versatility, but unfortunately did not make the roster this year. She's got a lot of talent. I mean, like I mentioned, the versatility is a big thing. Versatility in sports will get you places. Just tough with the roster restrictions, the cap restrictions in the WNBA. The Storm not able to keep Joyner. Continuing with team-related news, we got quite a bit. On the 14th, the Storm and its social justice platform Force for Change announced on that day stats for youth partners and beneficiaries for the 2024 season. Each year since the inception of Stats for Youth, the team partners with corporate community to benefit nonprofits that align with the 4 Force for Change pillars, which are amplification of Black women, support of BIPOC communities, support of LGBTQIA2+, communities, and voting, education, and legislation. Stats for Youth is a season-long program that tracks Storm player stats and turns each rebound, assist, free throw, three-pointer, and block into dollar donations for designated nonprofits. Since it was created back in 2021, Stats for Youth has raised just over $150,000 for nonprofits in the greater Puget Sound region. In celebration of the franchise's 25th anniversary, in addition to this money raised on the court, the Storm Foundation will bring all final gifts to $25,000. With this commitment, the Storm will double the funds raised for this program by the end of the 2024 season. So we'll go over here the different nonprofits that are being mentioned this year. So Rebounds for Housing, presented by Starbucks, benefits the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. For each rebound made by the Storm this year, Starbucks will donate $7 to the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, up to $10,000. The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle is a nonprofit offering a wide range of programs and services designed to address housing needs, financial literacy barriers, and access to basic economic resources in low-income and otherwise vulnerable communities. Nice for rebounding because the Storm currently lead the WNBA in rebounds per game by the time that this is coming out at 42.7. So that'll be nice to see. Funny because I just knew the stat off the top of my head there. I had to put it in my stats post for the game day. So, free throws for the future, presented by Alaska Airlines, benefits the Girl Scouts of Western Washington. For every free throw the Storm make, Alaska Airlines will donate 1,500 mileage plan airline miles to Girl Scouts of Western Washington, where Girl Scouts in our community are stretching their boundaries, trying new things, and finding safe spaces to be themselves, ultimately growing into leaders of courage, confidence, and character. Donated miles will make travel opportunities, both domestic and international, possible for local Girl Scout youth who are planning their next adventure. Alaska Airlines has been a long-standing community partner with Seattle Storm since 2019, prior to the Stats for Youth inception. In addition to this, the Storm will make a $5,000 contribution to Girl Scouts of Washington, Western Washington at the end of the season. Fans can also get involved by donating their unused mileage plan miles via Alaska's CARES Mile program. The Community Assist, presented by BECU, is benefiting Y-We for the fourth consecutive year. For every time the Storm record an assist, BECU will make a $12 donation up to $10,000 to Young Women Empowered, acronym Y-We, an organization that cultivates the power of diverse young women and gender-expansive youth in Seattle. Their transformative mentorship-based programs center on belonging, wellness, and thriving, and support the next generation of leaders and change makers in our community. Threes for Treehouse, presented by Carter Subaru, also a fourth-year program within this Force for Change initiative. Carter Subaru and the Storm will donate $30 for every three-pointer made to Treehouse, a nonprofit serving youth in foster care up to $10,000, of course, by the end of the season. In addition, the two will team up to provide unique experiences to the youth attending the institution. Rounding things out is Blockchain, presented by Coinbase, benefiting TechBridge girls. Coinbase and the Storm joined forces for the third consecutive year to donate $60 for each Storm block this season, up to $10,000 to TechBridge girls, which is a national nonprofit that builds equity in STEM education by equipping educators and professionals with the equity training and curricula that empowers them to act as catalysts for BIPOC girls on their STEM journey. We're going to keep it rolling here because we do have quite a bit. May 16th, the Storm announced that they're excited its 10th annual toy drive benefiting Seattle Children's. Between May 16th and May 25th, fans can donate toys or make financial contributions supporting children undergoing medical treatment via the official campaign page. We'll include that in the link in the description, of course. During the 2023 toy drive, the Storm helped raise over $8,750 for Seattle Children's and donated over 500 toys through fan contributions and team engagement. Storm fans can donate items during the May 25th game against the Washington Mystics. You can visit the Seattle Children's Amazon wish list for items of greatest need. Founded and run initially by a group of philanthropist women in 1907, Seattle Children's is at the forefront of medical research, working to cure childhood disease and improve outcomes for children all over the world. The organization specializes in meeting the unique physical, emotional, and developmental needs of children from infancy through young adulthood by the outstanding work of its physicians in nearly 60 pediatric subspecialties. We will be bringing some toys to that game on the 25th, and we will include links to that throughout the week to drum up more interest for that toy drive. So you'll see that on our pages as well. Goodness, there's quite a lot for the Storm. So, I mean, just go over it. It's always really cool to see the initiatives that the Storm are working in. You know, obviously all the pro teams will have them, but it just feels like to me the Storm have them, and they do promote them, but it feels like they go less noticed than the other times that the other pro teams are doing it. So I just like to shout out the Storm for that. And it's really cool to see that, and we'll be doing some more work to showcase some of that, you know, and how it's going throughout the course of the year. So we'll look at the team on the court They sit at a 1-win, 2-loss record, which is good for 9th overall in WNBA, 5th in the Western Conference standing. Looking ahead, the Storm have 3 games this upcoming week. 2 of them are at home. They close out that East Coast road trip tonight, May 20th, at the New York Liberty in Brooklyn with a 4 o'clock tip-off time. As I mentioned, we don't Nega Gumike is a game time decision. We don't have that decision quite yet by the time this is being recorded. Then they come back home. The 21st is an off day. May 21st versus the Indiana Fever is a 7 o'clock start at Climate Pledge Arena. So the Storm will host the Fever and Caitlin Clark. The Fever have had a tough start to the season. I mean, they've played some tough opponents to begin the year. It's a tough learning experience, but it's going to be a packed house for that. I know that. So we'll see that. And then on the weekend, as we mentioned with the Toy Drive, May 25th versus the Washington Mystics at Climate Pledge Arena is a 6 o'clock start.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, were you going to watch the Seattle Storm away games this year?
Away games. Well, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, so I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See you all here.